Also, low-key, I will be the music video for Why Do You Love came out. There were so many comments of people stating, wow, I cannot believe Honjun would be like this. I cannot believe he would be this borderline toxic, obsessive in relationships. And I am just here like, wow. I was entirely expecting it. Don't get me wrong, I was still watching the music video like, wow, I was not expecting this. Like, I was still shocked. I knew that he was an obsessive person, but just to hear him sing in the lyrics, why do I obsess over you? I'm just here like, oh my god, like this is actually true. Also, low-key, who hurt this man in the past? Because this sounds like he's been keeping this in for a long time. This is either like basically a fuck you to his ex-girlfriend, or this is just intrusive thoughts and late night fantasies that he has had at like 3 a.m. when he can't sleep. The way he explores his Scorpio, Venus and stellium in general is reflective of his Gemini moon in that he's going to express it through his creativity, through these songs, through his music, through his interaction and his purpose to his career. I also love that he uses baby and babe as a term, a nickname, a term of affection too. I just love baby, the nickname so much. I think it's just such a very universal, gentle nickname to have. Like, my friend calls me baby all the time, and every time they do it, I'm like, blah, 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 property, place name, backstory stuff. And this song is also reflective of his Venus being placed in the 11th house, in that he also wants to show this to the world. And I don't know if he's made it alive about the song yet, but I'm sure that eventually down the track he might say something that he decided to release this song so others can relate to him, or that he'll know 18s will have had this experience before. So in summary, the lyrics, particularly the bottom bit, translates to you will not have anyone else love you but me. Again, very Scorpio coded, but the way that he expresses his Scorpio tendencies is influenced by his Gemini moon and his 11th house placement. Whereas Chris's Scorpio Venus shows in a way that he makes you not being able to forget him. That's one of his, I don't want to say traits or values, but it's definitely like something he really prides himself on, I reckon, as a person. I don't know the fucking guy. But in my opinion of him having a Scorpio Venus, that's another trait of having a Scorpio Venus, is they make sure that you never forget them. There is a bit of a difference in the power dynamic between Honjun and Chris, in that Honjun is a switch with a preference for being dominant, whereas Chris is someone who's solely dominant. So their needs for control are also going to be varied, with Chris obviously having a much higher need and desire for control and having that control all the time. And the thing about his Scorpio Venus is it is the only water sign he has in his chart. So because of that, it is incredibly more pronounced, because it's a different element and a different perspective to all the other signs. Chris doesn't have a whole lot of variety in his natal chart. Like, it's mainly Libra and 5th and 6th placements. And that Scorpio Venus is more pronounced, more harnessed, has a more heavier effect on Chris, because it's not attached to anything. It's allowed to roam freely and be as influential as it desires. And yes, Chris is possessive and a very obsessive man. I would have to say, though, I think between the two, Honjun is definitely the more possessive and loyal one, in that I think he's a lot more romantically possessive, whereas Chris is more possessive in that he thrives on your, I guess, constant allure and desire for him, and also, again, he doesn't want to be forgettable. You know, have you, like, he wants to be that boyfriend or friend or whatever is in your fantasy that you had something with in the past and you just can't move on. He wants to be that. That sixth house influence that it has over the Scorpio Venus, which is the house of health and wellness and routine and stuff, is also evidential in the fact that, you know, Chris posts weekly on Instagram. Yes, he doesn't post daily on Bubbles, but he's very regular with it. I think that's also the biggest difference between Honjun and Bain Chang with their Scorpio Venus, is that Honjun, I feel, with his 11th house stellium, doesn't go as far to create those delusional fantasies like Chris does. And I think it's because with his 11th house stellium, he's really happy having that benchmark of, I guess, a strong, like, I don't want to say platonic because it's both platonic, but you know what I mean? Like, he's okay with having a more, like, friendly approach to his connection with 18s. Whereas Chris, on the other hand, with his heavy Libra stellium and his 5th placements and that Scorpio Venus, he kind of wants you to fantasize about him. Like, obviously in a healthy, you know, way with boundaries, of course. But he really does enjoy that delulu and those intrusive thoughts because, again, it goes back to the Scorpio Venus of him not wanting to be forgotten. And this is, for me, an intrusive thought because I think that, like, if Chris was a very toxic boyfriend, he's the type that if you were trying to move on from him, he basically wouldn't let you, like, would be the type to, you know, kind of snoop around on social media, see what's happening. You know, if you have plans of moving on or you're in a new relationship or you're going out with someone, you know, it's going to send you messages and pics and stuff to make sure that, you know, you're still attempting to think of him. And this is how low-key we end up with a performance of him talking about being used as a seat with scratch marks covered on him. And I checked, right, because I thought this might have been, like, regarding Wolfgang, but it's not. He solely got the scratch marks for this solo. This confirmed my 2 intrusive thoughts about him. Firstly, the man is a freak in the bedroom. Nasty. And secondly, with the way that those scratch marks line up regarding fingernails, definitely is the type to prefer you being underneath him. Definitely the more fuckboy end of the Scorpio Venus sign. Like, if I could trust either Chris or Honjun, I'd be trusting Honjun because I know he'd be committed. This man, like, ideally, I know he is, but I don't know. I just look at performances like this and the I Like It son and I think, maybe he is just a man in his 20s. Now, Chris here is a...
¿Cómo son los miembros de Stray Kids cuando tienen
chart? Disclaimer, of course, this is for delusional purposes only. I'm not saying the real Bain Chang is like this. I'm just saying that in an alternative universe, if Chris had not gone to therapy and has no self-control, his natal chart indicates he could be like this. So is Chris the type to get jealous if you have close friends that are boys? And the answer to that is yes, but it would take a lot for him to be jealous because Chris naturally, with his Venus in the 6th house Scorpio, with also his Mars conjunct Pluto, he's definitely the more possessive type. And that's why I wanted to use these AU imaginary text messages, because in an alternative universe, if Chris was in a dark romance novel, he could end up being like this because Chris is not the type to be jealous easily, but territorial extremely easily. Because with men like Chris who have extremely heavy, for starters, Scorpio, Taurus, or Mars Pluto placements, ownership and emotional love is not a separation with them. So whilst Chris is not the type to get easily jealous if you have male friends, He would only get jealous if he felt that they were, in a way, approaching his territory, for example. And Chris is also the type with his Libra stellium would not go crazy in public. He would hide it, but it would all be on his face, because with Chris being a Gemini rising and being a Libra sun conjunct moon, this man cannot hide his emotions to save his life. So for example, if you had gone out with your friends and a few of your friends were in fact men, Chris would let you have your space, but most likely he would not be, I guess, comfortable with it. You could see him at his apartment and he'd be maybe like pacing or worrying or thinking, oh my god, like what if one of them flirts with you without me there? What if someone touches you when I'm not there? Like his protectiveness and possessiveness would be on complete throttle. And this is because Scorpio placements as well value privacy. And by privacy, I mean if you are like Chris's girlfriend, like with Scorpio placements, I mentioned this with Honjun and Yunho as well, they expect them to be the first person you go to regarding any emotional information at all. So for example, if you had an issue at work that affected you and you told your male friend before you told him, then yeah, he's going to get jealous, because how dare you tell your male friend what happened at work and not tell me? When I'm your partner, I'm the love of your life, I own you, you solely belong to me, including those emotional issues. Most likely what would happen is Chris would want for you to hang out with your friends, but he, like Yunho, would probably want to at least be somewhere in the vicinity. Either he drops you there, he picks you up, maybe he joins you but he stays in the background, and then the moment that he sees that even like one of your male friends gets really affectionate, maybe a little bit too extra touchy, he's probably going to give you a look like this. He's probably going to have an extremely venomous look on his face, but he's not going to say anything, right? He doesn't want to embarrass you. But also with Chris, he has a really strong energetic blueprint. So when you're his partner, you are going to feel every fiber of what he's feeling at that time energetically. So the moment you see him switch and he has this look, you're probably thinking, okay, we're going to have a talk about this when we get home. Which most likely Chris at 28, being the emotional Libra alpha he is, would probably say something like, I can't believe he touched what was mine, like how dare he do that in front of me, like doesn't he know that you and me are a couple, like that was out of line. So extremely jealous? No. Extremely possessive? Yes. And that jealousy would stem if he feels that what he's possessive over is being marked in some way. Really good question here. Have been trying to think about it for a while, and my answer is